Tell me about yourself. That's the question I asked my oldest child, Zach, in fall 2016 as I was helping him prepare for his college interviews. Without hesitation, he blurted out, "I'm a high school senior, and I play baseball, and I love video games." And then there was silence and a cold stare. And if any of you have teenagers, you know exactly what that cold stare looks like. I said, "Zach, it's great you're telling me all the things you do. Can you tell me who you are?" He did not have an answer. For over 25 years, I crafted identities for brands by uncovering the quality that consumers value most and labeled this core value with one word. I thought, could there be a parallel process for personal branding? So to help Zach better understand himself, I challenged him to discover his core value. While initially reticent, he agreed to give it a try. I gave him questions that probed him to not only think about himself, but also how he was seen by others. I encouraged him not to rush and to give each question thoughtful consideration. Here are some of the questions I asked Zach. Think about them for yourself as I share them. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? What situations make you come alive? How would people describe your positive qualities? What do 5 people in your network say makes you unique? What are your 5 proudest accomplishments? My hope was that by going through these questions, Zach would find a common thread that would lead him to his core value. This process took time, but a few weeks later, Zach shared one accomplishment with me that he was most proud of. An event called rope burning that he had participated in at sleepaway camp a few years earlier. Envision this. There are 2 teams, red versus blue. Each team has 2 ropes hanging horizontally 6 and 10 feet off the ground. Zach is on the blue team and is selected to be one of 8 fire builders, an honor deeply coveted by every boy in camp, from the youngest to the oldest. Using 1 match, 2 pieces of paper, and sticks that were being handed to them by chosen campers, the fire builders must create a flame underneath the ropes that eventually dances high enough to burn through them. First team to burn through both ropes wins. At 11 minutes and 29 seconds, the competition is over. Red wins. Blue loses. Zach loses, or so he thought. At that moment, Zach had a split-second decision to make. Either stop and concede defeat or forge on. He decided to keep going. So cheered on by 600 campers with hoarse voices, he and his team eventually burned their ropes in 26 minutes and 18 seconds. The worst time differential in the camp's 100-year history. Even though he and his team had finally finished, Zach was devastated. But now, in answering the questions I had given to him, Zach was able to reflect back on this event and recognize that this defeat was actually a moment of personal triumph. Even though he had been heartbroken to lose, Zach had demonstrated that never giving up was more important than the outcome. He understood his core value as a perseverer. He found his one word. I could see the excitement Zach felt when he shared this realization with me. Persevere not only allowed him to anchor his story and clearly express who he was throughout his college application process, but it also gave him something more powerful to take with him into his future: the confidence to identify and pursue opportunities that align with who he is. When Zach embraces his one word, perseverer, it reminds him that he has a proven track record of navigating through challenging times and can rely on that core value in the future. After going through this process with Zach, I realized that I too had struggled with the question, tell me about yourself, particularly at times when I was in between jobs. My entire identity had been defined by my career, what I was doing, and I fell apart every time I was out of work because I felt worthless. And when I say I fell apart, I really mean I was having a full-blown identity crisis. An identity crisis is a developmental event that involves a person questioning their sense of self or place in the world. The concept originates in the work of 20th century psychologist Erik Erikson, who believed that the formation of identity was one of the most important developmental conflicts that people face. Erikson's fifth stage of development involves a crisis of identity versus confusion. This stage occurs between the ages of 12 and 18, a period where adolescents experiment with different roles. The goal is the formation of a personal identity. At the end of this stage, a person either resolves the conflict and has a firm identity or has identity confusion. While this stage usually occurs during the teenage years, Erikson posits that the formation and growth of identity are not confined to adolescence. Many people use the term identity crisis to describe any phase in which they question their sense of self or place in the world. A pivotal identity crisis I experienced was best exemplified during a final interview I had about 7 years ago with a recruiter for a job I was qualified for and was convinced I was getting. I walked in so confidently, and as soon as I sat down, the recruiter dropped this bombshell. Listen, Rich, I can't give you the job because the company is looking for a marketer to babysit this brand, someone to maintain the status quo. And you're a catalyst, someone who likes to shake things up. Initially, I couldn't hear anything the recruiter was saying other than, I did not get the job. I was devastated. It wasn't until 3 years later, when I reflected back on the conversation with the recruiter, that I realized she was right. I am a catalyst. That is my one word. I do feel most alive and most successful when I'm disrupting the way people think and provoking change. The power of knowing my one word gave me the clarity I needed to courageously pursue my life's work beyond corporate America. There was no more identity crisis. I'm now committed to being the catalyst that helps individuals discover their one words so they too can step into their own identities like Zach and I did. Despite a 31-year age gap between us, Zach and I utilized the same process to find a way to take charge of our respective paths forward. Now, the question I'm asked most often is, why one word? Well, traditionally, core values are traits expressed in one words like passionate, creative, reliable, and so on. In branding, distilling an identity for a product or service down to its one-word core value makes it both simple and memorable. When an individual applies that same philosophy, their one word becomes an inner compass. Here are some of the one words that people I have worked with have identified as their own. Let me introduce you to a few of the people behind these words. Meet Sophie the Unifier. As a child, she had wanted to be the first woman president of the United States to bring people together and give everybody a voice. When reflecting on the question, what did you want to be when you grew up? She took hold of her one-word unifier. Sophie recently created an online platform to bring Gen Z together to have difficult conversations about polarizing topics that ultimately help broaden their perspectives and better understand each other. Then there's Sam, the elevator. When I first started working with Sam, he mentioned that he had been a bench warmer on his high school basketball team. He talked about how he encouraged his teammates and brought enthusiasm to every practice. When I asked him, "What do you think about elevator as your one word?" he said, "That's unbelievable, because in high school, my coach nicknamed me Ladder Man, and I never really understood what that meant until now." Sam went on to co-found an online community for young adults, striving to elevate their mental fortitude as they conquer the real world. Next is Caleb, the key. Caleb is someone who comes alive when he unlocks the potential in others. This was what drew him into a career in wealth management initially, but helping his clients with their wealth was only part of his mission. He wanted to do more. Embracing his one word, he created Wealth Key workshops to empower people to live more intentionally with their time and money. As a key, Caleb helps them identify what is holding them back and unlock themselves from those constraints to reach their highest potential. I will never forget when I received a text from Caleb with this photo. Caleb was so taken by his one word that he had key embroidered into the lining of his tuxedo for his wedding day. Finally, there's Sarah, who is proud of her service to our country, both as an Iraq War veteran and a volunteer firefighter. Missing the camaraderie of the Army, she joined her local fire department to fill the void. It was there that she developed a fitness product to help her fellow firefighters develop the strength and conditioning required for the rigor of their rescue operations. This product, the steel hose, has the look and feel of a fire hose and can be used for a variety of exercises, typically done with dumbbells or kettlebells. As the name suggests, these exercise hoses are filled with recycled steel. During our work, Sarah was looking for a word to convey her strength, courage, and determination. That's when we both realized her one word is steel. It was a word that had been right in front of her eyes. She subsequently has incorporated her one word into other pursuits, including a podcast that celebrates the power of strength, spirit, and service. What I now know is this: the self-reflection process is not always easy. And when we are facing setbacks and challenging times, it is even harder. We often don't give ourselves enough time to think about who we are, but maybe it's time we start. I know doing the work pays off. My one word has helped me evolve my identity from what I do to who I am, and it has made all the difference. One word can do the same for you. Thank you.